Hey everyone, how you doing? It's me, Mike from Analog Attack, back again. And today's topic, well, I need absolutely no excuse to talk about this topic: Japanese punk, Japanese hardcore. So today's topic, you can see it behind me: best 15 Japanese punk albums is the name of the show. Perhaps favorites might be better. 15 of my favorites that I picked off the shelf. I tried to keep it to 15. I think there's like 17. I ended up with 17. Um, if you're watching, there might be some sort of glaring omissions for you. There might be some of your favorites in here, but let me know what some of your favorites are down in the comments. And also, a lot of people might say, well, the best Japanese hardcore ever lives on 7-inch singles or 8-inch flexis. You know what? Could be the case, but today we're talking about full-length albums and a couple of kind of 12 inches, really. I've got records that span from 1980 all the way up to last year. It's not a ranking. It's not in chronological order. It's actually going to go sort of alphabetical. That's the way we're going to do it today. So that's about it. Let's sit back, relax, have a little sip of Japanese beer, and enjoy nerding out about 17, I think, Japanese punk albums from over the years. We love Japanese punk. It's, like I said, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. So no excuse needed. All right. Like I said, alphabetical. So B. This band is probably the most well in Japan. It's the most well-known punk band of any other band. The members are still playing in other bands. Uh, their first LP is kind of a classic. So's their second, and so's their third. I'm talking about the Blue Hearts debut LP, 1987 on a major label, Meldak Records. Man, honestly, this album, even though it came out in 1987, I will put it up there with any of the sort of classic UK 1977 punk records. It's a band very influenced by the Buzzcocks and the Clash, and also like the Rolling Stones, maybe, and the Beatles. But man, this is an absolute classic. Everybody in Japan knows this band. Linda Linda is on here. Their songs have been in TV commercials and in anime, theme tunes. The two main members are still going in this band called the Cro-Magnons, who just put out their newest LP. I'm going to go and see the Cro-Magnons on Christmas Day. I can't wait. I've talked about this before, but if you haven't, watched this show before, I'm just saying, Christmas Day, the Cro-Magnons. And man, you know what? The Cro-Magnons pretty much sound like the Blue Hearts. These guys are kind of stuck in the past, but it's a great thing. Um, if you're into Japanese punk, this is an absolute must in your collection. You can get it on CD easily. It's been repressed a whole bunch of times. An original is kind of expensive in Japan, but man, like I said, just not even Japanese punk in general. This is an absolute stone cold classic. Blue Hearts, 1987, Meldak Records. This one, not that I'm doing this to sort of appease anybody or like please people, but I kind of knew that if I didn't mention this one, there'll be sort of some comments about it. And actually, I wasn't going to show it, but the reason I am showing it is because I recently rebought an original of this, and man, I used to distribute this record back in the day when I was doing MCR, and I used to sell like Selfish Records and other Japanese labels too. This one, I think it was the biggest selling record when I was talking like 50 or 60 copies. But man, it's funny thinking about it, to think that I had like 50 or 60 copies of this record like in my bedroom back then, and now it's like a $200-300 record because they only made like 1,000, right? So I'll show the reissue first, which is actually that one. This is sort of getting up there in price as well. I'm talking about Bastard, Wind of Pain. Who doesn't like Bastard, Wind of Pain? Everyone likes this record. People who like traditional Japanese hardcore, people who are kind of more crusty. A lot of American bands and European bands have covered like Misery. But I always thought that this band like was a little bit less Japanese sounding than a lot of the other Japanese hardcore that was around in the late 80s and early 90s. Very kind of like Veruca's influenced, but man, what makes this record great? Well, first of all, it's just so fucking powerful. I mean, the production is massive. The songs are super catchy. It's like kind of Veruca's, and maybe leaving a little bit of like doom in there. Um, the drumming is like unbelievable. Koba, the drummer, who was in Systematic Death, and now he's in Rocky in the Sweden. He's been rocking in Sweden for like 25 years now. Something like that. I still think of Rocky in Sweden as being kind of a new band, but hey, they've been around for a while, right? His drumming kind of elevates it. It just takes it above like kind of similar bands, maybe from the UK, a little bit crusty, and the vocals to me always sounding like let's show the original, shall we? Why not? Here we go. Man, it's funny, like back in the day, people would complain about paying like, I don't know, £10, £15 for this record. It was an import, Japanese import, but yeah, you wouldn't be complaining now. I mean, who would have thought that all these years later, it would be, a Bonza, a super rare record. I kind of guess it kind of makes sense, but yeah, absolute classic. Window Pane, Bastard. You know what? I do have like one minor complaint about this record, and I've said this a lot of times. I think the vocals stop it being a 10 out of 10 record. But maybe that's just me. But nevertheless, obviously an absolute classic. All right. Long running band who originally started out in Osaka and then moved to Tokyo and kind of changed styles. They were more of a sort of Discharge influence band back in the beginning, and then went more metallic. I love the metallic era of this band the best. I think they peaked in 2006 with this record. Talking about Crow, Bloody Tear, came out in Japan on HG Fact, and then our dear friend Ken from Prank Records did the vinyl treatment in the USA. Stone cold classic, metallic, desperate, powerful record that I don't think they ever bettered. There might be some songs of this caliber on some like split 7-inches, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't really listen to anything like that so much, the split singles and stuff. And then there's the 12-inch too, but this is absolute peak Crow to me. They're still going. They played in Osaka a couple of weeks ago, and I've sort of heard mixed reports about their live show. Another thing that I love about this band is the guitarist, Tomio, and we're going to talk about him a bit later on another one of my picks. Crow, Bloody Tear, absolute classic. I call it contemporary, it's like almost 20 years old already, but undeniable. This record I talked about in my Women in Japanese Punk record. I had to include it. It's, a favorite of mine. Came out in 1983 on Dogma Records. I'm talking about the Cums No Side. It's like 3/4 of, who would later be in, who would become Lip Cream, Minoru, Pill, and Naoki. And of course, the amazing Chitose on vocals, which really makes this record stand out for the era, to have this woman on vocals with her like super aggressive, passionate vocal attack on this record. 10 out of 10 record. La Vida Es Mus repressed it about 5 years ago. Mandatory, compulsory. You must have this in your collection if you even pretend that you like Japanese punk. Masterpiece. I had to include one of the albums by this band. I guess I could have chosen a split album or even like the recent collection, but to me, this is their magnum opus. It's Chelsea's masterpiece. They took years to record it, but they took years to record it, but it didn't actually come out sounding that great from an audio point of view. But nevertheless, Death Side, Bet on the Possibility, Selfish Records, 1991. It's technical, it's progressive, the songs are complicated. This is definitely Chelsea's baby. It has all of his kind of progressive tendencies written all over it, and like less of Ishia's sort of more I like chaos, chicane, and disorder. Although there is that in there too. There's like little acoustic breakdowns. There's piano. There's like the end, the outro that sounds like Queen. I, for me, this is my favorite of the two albums. But of course, the thing about Death Side is that they recorded so many great compilation tracks and the split with Chaos UK, and they kind of went back to even being more ferocious. And I love all that stuff too. But when it comes to the full length LPs, this is the one for me. And we're going to talk about one of Chelsea's other babies at the end of the show. So stick around. Death Side, Bet on the Possibility, masterpiece. This is the oldest record I'm going to show. Actually, it's from 1980. I've been listening to this band a lot lately because there's been some like reissues of live LPs. Now, I'm not really someone who likes to listen to a lot of punk live LPs, but this stuff that I've been hearing for the first time, these live recordings from like 1980, 1979, have just been blowing me away, and it kind of reminded me of how good this band was. So I've been playing this album a lot over the last like 3 or 4 months, and I really came to understand what a classic it is. Let's get to it. I'm talking about Friction, who, kind of major label band. The members had kind of lived in New York. They were already kind of maybe a little bit older guys. It's super angular, jagged post-punk, but in real time. It's 1980 with maybe like a bit of Gang of Four. It doesn't get too funky, but man, a lot of people like Crazy Dream, which is on here, but the 7-inch single version is a little bit more aggressive, a bit more punky. I think this record is a masterpiece. It's a classic, and I can actually manage to go up to the second or third album by this band now, although they get like less and less punk as you move forward through the catalog. But the live stuff, man, is incredible. I'm going to talk about the most recent live album reissue on the What Are You Listening To show this week. So check that out if you want to hear me sort of talking about some live Friction. Amazing band, very, very important band. To me, they kind of sow the seeds for ADK Records and that kind of dark punk sound. Talking of ADK Records, let's go to this one, a little bit out of order, but to me, it might be controversial. This is my favorite record on ADK Records. It's G-Zet, self-titled. It's Tam from the Starlin and the owner of ADK Records. Kago from Starlin and Star Club, and of course Pill from Lip Cream. I mean, it's 1984. Here's a band that decided to do a band that is basically just a mashup of Motorhead, Discharge, and Black Sabbath. I mean, there's stolen riffs. There's, the Symptom of the Universe riffs in here. There's Ace of Spades riff, Motorhead riffs, Discharge riffs. Man, it's such a fun and powerful, dark record, actually, but long-time favorite. I think it's the best record on ADK Records. Like, as I said at the beginning, people are going to say that, the best stuff lives on flexi discs. That's fine. But, when it comes to albums, man, this is unbeatable. G-Zet, self-titled ADK Records, which, as we know, is a super, super important label in the development of Japanese punk. All right, more contemporary record from 20 years ago. This band was from Morioka, North Japan, so they weren't involved in the Tokyo scene. Obviously they played in Tokyo a lot. I saw them once in Osaka and it was absolutely mind-blowing. Going back to drummers again, I think one of the things that makes Japanese hardcore stand out often is the amount of incredible drummers that they have. The drummer of this band was no exception. I'm talking about Gouka, which is an interesting band because they seem to kind of straddle what you might call traditional Japanese hardcore and kind of the cross scene. I feel like they kind of played with both kinds of bands. I think when I saw them in Osaka, they played with Nightmare and Warhead, and man, such a powerful band. There's some like D-beat going on in this record. Are this band underrated? People who know this band, this is kind of a hidden classic, I guess. It only came out in Sweden. Is it Putrid Filth Conspiracy, the Swedish label, I think. Never came out in Japan, I don't think there's even a CD reissue. Such a powerful record. The front man is amazing too. And they kind of morphed into this band called Rapper, who are also pretty great. They're still active. They don't have too much recorded material out, but man, Destroyed Natural Beast. Program is the name of the album, but there's a lot of other words on the front cover. But man, amazing. Recorded at our house. There's another theme that could thread through the show, is the our house recording studio in Tokyo, where so many classic records were recorded. 20 years old, man. Unbelievable, eh? How time passes us by. This one, I know it's Marmite. Some people who love it. People who don't like it really don't like it. They don't get it. I like it so much. I have all 3 pressings of it. I'm talking about, of course, Gastunk. Dead Song originally came out on Dogma Records in 1985, and then it got reissued like a year later on Love Records, and then it got reissued again another year later on Vice Records. Hey, you get the OB with this one. Gastunk, what's it all about? Obviously, Baki was in the Execute, more of an aggressive like first wave Japanese hardcore band that he left. Gastunk was formed. Gastunk really right from the get-go were a different band, more metallic. I think they were influenced by X Japan and like some Japanese heavy metal. You can't really tell what their influences are. They're such a Japanese band, and no one, there's nothing outside of Japan in like 1985 that sounds like this. You can't pinpoint any kind of influences. There's none of that sort of Chaos UK, Discharge, Disorder influence that was in a lot of other Japanese bands at the time. Flashy guitar solos. I think Baki was a very influential vocalist, or another vocalist that I'm going to talk about later. His vocal delivery, the way he sings, a lot of the melodies are taken from traditional Japanese music, enka. So it has this very like mournful, melancholic, kind of sad feeling to it. He's not a super aggressive vocalist. He can sing. He's a great singer. To me, this is an absolute classic. Let us know. Do you like Gastunk? And of course, they went more and more commercial. Puss Smart released their second LP with a different jacket design. They got big. They were playing in stadiums in Japan to schoolgirls. They had their, 15 minutes of fame, and then it was all over. They were gone. They broke up. There's a box set live album called The End, which is not that great. For me, the first single and Dead Song are my favorite Gastunk stuff. And of course, they reformed. They've been putting out new albums too, which I have not heard. This is another one that at the time I felt like I was kind of the only person that was that enthusiastic about this band. In fact, I was so enthusiastic, I put out a 7-inch single from 6 songs from this record. I'm talking about Junest, which originally came out on Junest's own label, Devilish Records. It's Under the Red Moon. It's metallic. It's pretty long. I think they really improved from like the stuff that they'd done before this. Like I said, I like this band so much. I put out a 6-song EP by them. I saw them in 1990 with Lip Cream and Sicilian Blood and some other bands, and they were ferocious. It was a Devilish Fight gig, which was Junest's gig series. I'll always remember that show. Remember that guy, Tomio, I was talking about in Crow? He's the guitarist of Junest. Such a flashy, like over-the-top metallic guitar player. I love it, man. They're not afraid to rip in metallic solos. And to me, this is kind of a classic. I mean, in Japan, they were, a little bit of a B grade band. They weren't up there with like Death Side and Tetsuare. But to me, I know, man, they've been a fond favorite of mine since the early 90s. So I love this record. And FOAD released it on vinyl a few years ago. So it's out there if you prefer the vinyl version. And they also did like a singles collection and comp tracks collection, which was great. That was a great day when that came out. Hey, I've got a very, very contemporary record that came out just last year, which I think is going to be a future classic. A lot of people prefer their older stuff because it was more noisy. I think this is like way better. They really matured into a powerful band. I'm talking about Kriegshog. Love and Revenge, 2024, La Vida es un Mus Records. Man, they slowed things down. They take their time. The songs have atmosphere. The songs build up, kind of simple riffs. I mean, to me, it kind of reminds me of the first wave of Japanese hardcore, like ADK Records kind of sound. I know that they had some influences, like like Kayas and stuff, which honestly you can't really hear it. I can't hear it anyway. But if you see this band live and you see these songs played live, you realize like how powerful they are. Just those super powerful, quite simple riffs, repetition. Like I said, I think this is going to be a future classic. Mark my words. Come back to me in 20 years. You'll be paying like $500 for a copy of Kriegshog, Love and Revenge. Now, my first visit to Japan was in 1990, and I'd heard quite a few Japanese punk and hardcore records before that. There was a couple of records that when I listened to them, in my mind, it totally conjured up what the streets of Tokyo would be like. And I think this one is the best example of that. I imagine, like this cyberpunk, like, back then it was all, you didn't have the internet. So it was all guidebooks saying, Blade Runner and blah, 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 like neon nightscapes and this, that, and the other. And this record just, to me, my imagination ran amok and I was thinking about what Tokyo might be like. And I'm talking about Last Bomb, Selfish Records, 1987. Again, I'm not going to say this is underrated, but perhaps for a lot of people, it might not make, a top 10 if they were to make a top 10 Japanese hardcore list of all time. I think this is a classic. There's a kind of really, like I said, there's an atmosphere about it that's kind of lightning in a bottle. There's some slower songs that really kind of move along and just very atmospheric, powerful record. There's members of important bands and bigger bands in this band. They kind of, that's Cloudy, right? From Gizm here, and there's like ex-members of Ghoul and stuff in the band. They had some kind of lineup changes. There's some 7-inch singles, and then they changed their name to Final Bomb. That's a story for another day. But to me, this is like honestly one of the best records that Selfish Records put out, which is pretty high praise, I know. If you haven't checked out The Last Bomb self-titled 12-inch, do yourselves a favor, check it out. Everyone's been talking about Lip Cream. They're getting the relapse treatment, and this is an interesting topic of discussion that I might actually do because I did order the box set. So when that arrives, I might do a standalone show about Lip Cream and these kind of reissues and this, that, and the other, because I know there's a lot of opinions. So Lip Cream, obviously, I'm wearing a t-shirt. They've got 4 LPs. This is my favorite. There's been some weird conversations, in the last few months about what's your favorite Lip Cream record and this, that, and the other, because of, these reissues got announced. This has been my favorite for years. I think they peaked on this record. It's the self-titled, or Sin, as it's also known as, from 1989. Selfish Records. Obviously, you're going to be able to get this either as a standalone, like splatter vinyl, or glow in the dark vinyl in the box. And maybe you've heard this story has a story. This record has a story going through it, which is about an upcoming nuclear apocalypse, and they acted out all these scenes. It's all in Japanese, of course, and there's like sound effects. And the band decided to not include that in the Relapse reissue, and I was kind of shocked about it first. I guess it does kind of make sense. I have listened to the new version online a couple of times and I've gotten used to it, but to me, the original version with the story running through it will always be the sort of definitive version. classic, powerful, incredible drumming, like just untouchable. This is one of the best hardcore records of all time, not only Japan, in my opinion. Lip Cream, self-titled, classic. There was a local band from Osaka who were very influenced by Lip Cream. I think a lot of people did often sort of refer to them as the Lip Cream of Osaka, but their debut LP is a classic. It also came out on Selfish Records just 1 year later after that Lip Cream record. I'm talking about Nightmare. Give Notice of Nightmare. This has been reissued as well on Farewell Records. In fact, I did pull the reissue of this album from the shelf. It's kind of flimsy. Honestly, if you can get an original, I don't think this sounds as good. I'm not sure. It doesn't sound as good as the original. Maybe they didn't have the master tapes, but man, to me, this is a lightning in a bottle record. Man, this is probably the band, apart from Warhead, this is the band I've seen more than any other like Japanese band. I used to go and see Nightmare and Warhead almost every weekend when I moved to Japan in the sort of late 90s. And at that point in time, it was the sax era, which a lot of people don't like, but live at that time, they were still, man, they were so energetic. I used to love going to see Nightmare. Very dear to my heart, this band. Absolute classic, ferocious. A lot of people sort of don't like the cover. I always thought it was like it was an interesting cover. It kind of, it's like a little bit like doom and metally, a little bit Black Sabbathish kind of a cover, very sort of non-punk looking cover. But anyway, Nightmare, Give Notice of Nightmare, Selfish Records, 1990. Another contemporary record from 2002, Nagoya band, who had a string of like 7-inch singles. They were really into the sort of idea of doing great like 7-inch singles, kind of like Judgment. Their full-length LP on HG Fact is an absolute stone cold classic. It's definitely a punk record. I'm talking about Order, Typo Dong. Man, this is like these guys from Nagoya really channeling like the best of UK 82 with sort of a Japanese punk twist on it. Every song is just an amazing punk song. The production's amazing. The vocalist has this great kind of raspy delivery. They were an amazing live band at this time. There's been some interesting developments with this band. Like they've been without a guitar player, but this isn't about the history of Order. This is about this album, Typo Dong. It's going up in price. It's still not a C Bank Officer for Loan kind of a record. If you're in Japan or if you ever come across this record, do not hesitate. It's an absolute punk classic. 10 out of 10 record for me. Beautiful. Another record, another one, woohoo, another one that another record that before I came to Japan for the first time, was running amok with my imagination. I was thinking, man, this sounds so Japanese to me. It's from 1988. Again, like the Last Bomb record, you can't imagine anything like this existing outside of Japan. This band had already done some singles with Chelsea from Death Side on guitar. Then he left, and this is their debut LP, Kick Rock. Again, another one of those ones kind of similar to Gastunk. This band were definitely like influenced by Gastunk. The singer does kind of have a Baki style delivery. That Enka thing, he can really sing. It's metallic. There's a goddamn like whistling solo on it, a ballad with a whistling solo. But I loved this record like the first time I heard it. Like I said, it really was like, man, this is Japan. This sounds like Tokyo. And I still, even though I've lived in like Japan for decades, when I put this record on, I still think, Tokyo or Japan. It's so Japanese sounding. Like I said, like vocal melodies taken from Enka. This has been reissued too, maybe by Puke and Vomit. I'm not sure, but if you can, this is still a cheap record, like the Last Bomb record too. They're still available for like $40, $50 in Japan. I mentioned another baby that Chelsea made. This is probably the most ambitious and adventurous record that he made in his career. I don't think he could have done it in Death Side. He might have wanted to do it in Death Side, but he had to form another band. The posters behind me called Paintbox, and this is their third LP, double LP, Trip, Trance, Traveling, HD Fax CD, Prank Records, Vinyl, 2009. What do you think of this record? I know a lot of people, for some people, it's like a bridge too far, too much progressive rock. There's some like Japanese pop in here. It's super poppy. There's like some traditional Japanese music. Like even like the hardcore songs are very upbeat, and it's not dark and dischargey, like Death Side. It's very like poppy and upbeat and celebratory, and kind of a little bit psychedelic, and a sprawling double LP. I mean, what a thing to sort of do in 2009. I mean, I think it took years and years to put together. This one sounds great from an audio perspective, much better than his other, masterpiece, Bet on the Possibility. But I'm not saying this is my favorite record that Chelsea ever played on, but man, what an ambitious project that he saw through right to the end, and I think it's kind of a classic. But it might be a bit too much, for a punk rocker to listen to four sides of this very kind of, ambitious punk music. There we go. That's it. 17 of my favorite Japanese punk records of all time, from 1980 right up to 2024. You're thinking there are some glaring omissions, right? And I can think of a few right off the top of my head, but these are the ones I wanted to talk about today. Let me know some of your favorites in the comments. I love talking about Japanese punk. We'll be talking about it again more sooner than later. As always, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. Have a great week, and see you soon. Cheers.